Well, let's take you back to Diepkloof now, where residents are rushing to update prepaid meters before Eskom's deadline. Our anchor, Ayanda Nyathi, is still stationed there on the ground and has more for us. Ayanda, of course, it has been a waiting game for many residents in Soweto, in the main, for several hours there. I believe some people have been waiting since 2 a.m. this morning. Just talk to us about essentially what officials are saying, because I know you have tried, in fact, to gain some entry into that facility to see exactly how Eskom officials are processing some of these customers.
Yeah, Unati, talk about getting dressed up and having nowhere to go. Many of the residents here, as you've mentioned, spending in some instances more than 24 hours waiting, and the waiting continues. We spent now 5 hours here. I've been on my feet for 5 hours, and I shudder at the thought of the toll this is taking on many of the elderly and others here, given the strain I'm now feeling under the scorching heat here in Diepkloof. The process is moving, albeit very, very slowly, and what has dominated the sentiment of the many people here is sheer confusion. It's brought to the surface this moment so many electricity-related matters that seem to be coalescing at this very point, with people in these queues in some instances worried that they're not going to have electricity after the cut-off date on Sunday. Many of them have told us they do have the meters, but the meters are difficult to understand. Others are saying there are no meters and they're worried that there's going to be a disconnection as a result of that. Many admitting the meters are there, but they've been bypassed, and they're worried that because of that, the devices which have allowed that to happen will become inoperable. We've been stationed outside, but I'm being signaled that we might have an opportunity to get inside. So we're going to, once again, you'll excuse our shot as we try to delatch our camera from our tripod, and we're going to do some walking and talking and discover together what on earth is happening inside there. So follow me as we go inside here in Diepkloof. The MEC has been here for quite some time now, and finally it seems there may be movement as we get to the bottom of what might have been happening insofar as his own meetings are concerned. I'll tell you what, even just as we enter inside, it's a completely different atmosphere, completely different mood, given the sometimes more chaotic scenes that have unfolded outside this particular facility. So the MEC is in your shot there. It seems that they're getting ready for what might be an opportunity for us to engage them officially here at the Diepkloof Center. The MEC for Cooperative Governance in Gauteng is Jacob Mamabolo, who is with us now after his marathon meeting, is what it feels like. MEC, I'm going to jump straight into it. I hope you're ready for us. Good morning. Thank you so much for making time. We're live on the SABC News channel. You spent some time inside this facility. In fact, we were already here by the time you walked in. What's your assessment of what's taking place outside?
Well, thank you very much. And to all the viewers, let me say that we have came here to conduct an assessment and just to get sort of first-hand information from the management of Eskom that are working here. And before we came in, we interacted with the people to get an understanding from them about what the difficulties, the challenges are with upgrading their meters. And from our own assessment, it will seem like there are almost clear categories that need attention from the team here. So what is very clear to us is there are people whose prepaid meters are in good standing with Eskom. In other words, to the best of their knowledge, there are no issues between them and Eskom as it relates to the meters. The way we understand it is that those people do not have to be standing in the queues because they can do a self-service. They can simply go buy electricity. It will definitely give them what they need to update and upgrade their meters, so they can do it themselves. And that seems to be very clear.
Okay.
The other category is those people who, of course, to the best of their knowledge and what they can say, do have a difficulty with the self-service, that is upgrading the prepaid meter by themselves, because when they put in the required information and details, it doesn't go through, neither does it upgrade.
Okay.
So that category, it means there is a problem of one kind or another with Eskom relating to their meter, and they need to engage with the Eskom team that is here. Then they will give them the real facts and the truth about, okay, the reason why you are unable to upgrade, to update your system is because these are the difficulties.
Sure. So if I can come in there, MEC, I hear you, and this does corroborate our own experience. Many of the people out there are frankly confused about whether or not they should be here. The question, though, is an obvious one. What is being done to communicate that to them so that at the very least you don't have people well in their pension years under the scorching heat for hours in a context where they might not even need to be there?
So one of the things we just discussed now, and I got a brief from the management here, is they have increased the number of the people or the personnel to serve and engage the public. So they just told me that they've drawn in people from the different sides of Eskom to come and beef up their capacity. That team has just been deployed. So it means it is going to help fast track the service and the interaction with the people that need a briefing about what is the problem exactly, why can't they self-service the account. The second issue that worried us is, of course, there are the elderly in the queues and the most vulnerable that need a particular type of attention. And we have agreed with the team that, please, now that you have increased the numbers, now you have got more people, can you improve your engagement with the people in the queue and do regular checks of frequently talk and engage people, because there are new people coming in, to make sure that those that you can be able to isolate and pay special attention to, you do that. So from what the team has briefed me, which was also a point of worry, was in the last 30 minutes or so, they've completed the briefings with the new teams that have come in. I have seen them come in. So what we were going to do now is to take a walk in the queues with them and to check if indeed there is improvement in servicing the people and if the numbers are showing an indication. And of course we'll get feedback from the people. If the queue is moving, and I will also talk to the elderly, and the most vulnerable could be people with disability. Sure. So they have said they've got the numbers, they've increased the numbers. We're going to test that now and monitor the queues. And
we'll be there monitoring it with you, MEC. I know you speak for a different level of the state. The electricity minister was here yesterday. He made a promise of ambulances and sanitary facilities that was meant to arrive, desperately needed, but nowhere in sight.
Well, the point I can make is that whilst I may not be able to speak for the minister, I'm not authorized to do that. But I think the most profound principle is the nature of the problem that we have here requires the three spheres of government to work together. So we are here as the province. We are in communication with the municipalities. Just last night, our technical teams in the province met with the teams in the municipalities to make sure that there's monitoring, intervention, troubleshooting. So the other point, immediately when I finish here, now that I have the briefing and will be doing the walkabout, is precisely to check if there's any additional extra capacity that we need. For example, it might be very prudent to immediately activate through the MAC of Health, to activate health services close by at Baragwanath to come and provide support, because the elderly are here, they are in the queues, and they also, are worried about what exactly is going on. So we just came out of the briefing now. So what we're going to be doing is I also have to brief the Premier as well, so that the Premier is also, kept abreast about what is happening and then make a recommendation. And I think the Minister is absolutely right if he has said, and indeed I hope he would have said so, that there's a need for health support services. And myself, I would also agree with that, and that's one of the things we'll look into. Do we need the city of Joburg to provide that support, or do we need the province? But the principle, the overarching principle is 3 spheres of government at all material times should work together. No single sphere of government can solve a particular problem. We need coordination, we need integration, we need all of us to work together to complement each other.
A sentiment that's been shared before, MEC, and we're yet to see it materialize, at least here. Is there anybody from the facility we could speak to just to help us understand the management of what has taken place here? And the reason I asked this question, MEC, is that what's happening outside is not new. We have been beaming visuals throughout the week, and in fact we're told today is the better of the days, given just how much of an outpouring of a response there's been. And despite that, several government officials are saying all the right things, but very few people are seeing a change outside. There's one fatality already on our hands. I shudder at the thought of what's going to happen in the build-up to Sunday if something doesn't change. Crowd management, for example, is a quick thing that comes up, Whilst we're outside, there are people who are pushing, who are shoving, elderly people caught in the crossfire, so to speak, and yet there's no clear coordination of just managing the crowd outside of anything else.
Well, I think it will be incorrect for me to deny that we could improve. I think it is clear to me that we need to improve what we're doing, and we need to double up the effort that we're putting into this. We need to improve the coordination. So that point is granted, and that's exactly what we're going to be working on immediately. And let me also just take the opportunity to convey our condolences to the family, the friends, and of course for the life lost of Mr. Busakwe. And we will wish, to say to the family, may his soul rest in eternal peace, and we do convey our condolences to his family. So from now on, we're going to try to improve. Definitely, we should be improving, and I don't think it's correct to deny that.
Okay, let's talk timelines, MEC. You spoke about a new team being assembled. When can we start seeing people outside, engaging the residents, as you mentioned, in an effort at the very least to ensure that those who don't need to be in this queue, and you can understand, people sometimes are elderly, it's confusing messaging for them, to understand so that those who shouldn't be in this queue aren't here for any minute longer. When can we start seeing people outside?
Well, what they told me is that the team was briefed, and the briefing was concluded in the last 30 minutes. So apparently the team is here, and in the walkabout, that's exactly what we want to see. Is there a sense of the queue is moving, at what pace, how many people are we saving at a particular rate? So the impact of the new team that has been brought in here, we will see it just now, but I'm told they've just been deployed to the different sites in the last 30 minutes. So that's what we're going to be monitoring.
All right. Last one from me, and I don't know if my media colleagues have any questions, but a point has been raised by other residents who've come here asking whether or not it's not possible through your own coordination for Eskom to create other sites closer to their homes. We're told people as far as Middlelands have to come here, which is quite a distance. Is that something that's possible? I know we're pressed for time because Sunday is around the corner, but I think any solution at this point is welcomed.
We will communicate with the management. There's a management of Eskom in the province. They are here as well. So we will communicate about precisely so that everybody doesn't have to come to one site. So that's part of the improvements we'll be looking at. We will recommend to the management of and leadership of Eskom that maybe, yes, indeed, they could create more points, because the majority of people are definitely not so clear about what exactly is the problem. So if it is essentially about clarifying the people about, the status of their prepaid account and why they can't do self-service, and they still don't succeed when they do that, that means a help desk to clarify, take queries, could actually go a long way to service the people. So one of the recommendations I've just made to the leadership here was, can we strengthen just simple inquiry, help desk, what are you here for? Let's hear what the issues are. Okay, you go to that queue. So that you can do at different centers. So, but we have to, we can only make a recommendation to the team, but we will make that recommendation now that we fully understand why there are long queues, there's an improvement. So that is also another issue to look into, because they could, if maybe the nature of the problem and the technology that they are using is not decentralized, or may not in a short space of time be decentralized, but simple communication, sharing of information, and explaining to people what can be done, that can be created at all centers. So that's a matter we will discuss.
All right. MEC of Cooperative Governance in Gauteng, thanks very much indeed, Jacob Mamabolo, who's just spoken to us after that meeting that he had inside there with several of the officials who apparently run this facility. And, you know, I think it's yet another moment of diagnosis paralysis. I mean, the officials who are coming here are actually saying the right things. And part of what they've now learned is the issue is pretty accurate given the engagements we've had. But to reiterate the point, this isn't new. We're on day 4 this week alone of these snaking queues outside. And one has to wonder what it'll take ultimately for the words that come out of their mouth to translate into the material change or the change in the material conditions of the people outside. Because as we've mentioned, we've only been here on our feet for 5 hours. And already that's starting to take its toll. I absolutely shudder at the thought of what is going through the experience of many of the elderly people outside who have also been on their feet for as long, but seemingly aren't getting the assistance they need.
And Ayanda, if I may, you know, just going back to what the MEC is, I find some of his comments troubling, particularly as it pertains, and you rightfully pointed out to it earlier on, that some of the people that are standing there, that are queuing there, some since 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, shouldn't really be there. There are other means and ways in which they could have actually done this particular process. And also, just as you continue to read and investigate some of the ways in which this also could be done, and looking at the messaging that is already out there, I mean, I stumbled across a messaging that says, so while the non-updated meters will stop being able to load credit on Sunday evening at 8:15, we're being told, it will still be possible to issue key change tokens for entering into a meter beyond this date, up to, I believe, 2025 May. So there are all of these messages that are going through. It's no wonder that you still have some people who are confused by just some of the information that's out there.
And you can imagine, Unathi, how this lands for many of the elderly in some instances who live in communities where other people around them are as old. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that it can be incredibly confusing. And we have seen instances of people coming even towards us. I mean, they see the camera, they see the SABC mic, which is recognizable anywhere in the country, and they show us that they have been paying. And if Eskom's messages to us is anything to go by, it means they are fine. The point, Unathi, is that anybody should be out there in those queues, going through the lines and engaging with the people who are there, so that at the very least those who are genuinely hoping to check if everything is in order are able to get the affirmation they need and are able to at least move away from this queue. I mean, part of what's creating the confusion outside is just the sheer numbers of people who are there. And until somebody takes down the effort or makes the effort to get down to the bottom of that, this situation is going to continue, and in some instances unnecessarily. As I speak to you, Unathi, I mean, we spoke about how in some instances it's been overcast. It's starting to rain now. I have no idea how some of the people who are outside are going to be able to respond to that. Hopefully that team the MEC spoke about will get to work rather sooner than later.
And just a final point for me before I let you go, Ayanda. I mean, we talk about what is happening here and who it affects most. One of the interesting conversations that you had earlier on in the show with one of the people that are queuing there is that for them, it's so interesting to see that come election time, you have all of the sophisticated kind of processes that are implemented. But when it comes to service delivery, it seems that no resources are thrown to processes such as this one that we're seeing today, where it is very pivotal, particularly for people, like you mentioned, the elderly, to come out there and not have just the basic help.
Absolutely. The point that the gentleman made is that around election time, it doesn't seem to be a tall ask to have people go toe to toe. And we've seen that. We've covered an election just a few months ago where officials, granted from political parties, but still the state in some instances is represented in those people, but there is an effort made to go door to door and ensure that people are aware of the messages that the politicians at the time want to send through. But when it comes to something like this, the residents tell us that there simply hasn't been the same amount of rigor insofar as they are concerned. I mean, one of the gentlemen made the point that in the same way that at the very least there were voting stations inside communities, perhaps the power utility could have come up with these pop-up centers, nothing elaborate, just a tent and perhaps some of the equipment they need in these communities that might even rotate for a couple of days in order once again to prevent the bottleneck that's taking place beyond these gates. And it's difficult to sometimes get a sense of what's happening on Eskom's side, because as I mentioned earlier, no one from Eskom has engaged us in the 5 hours we spent here. We've spoken to the MEC, who himself needed to be briefed by Eskom officials, and so it's incredibly difficult to get a sense of what it takes manpower-wise, resource-wise, to accede to some of the suggestions being made by the residents here, who are asking at the very least that they could be met halfway, especially given the efforts that they're making to comply with this message. Notwithstanding, Nyathi, of course, that messages had been sent since last year, and the fact that Eskom, as far as they're concerned, have done everything they can insofar as sending out that message. But the reality is that we're here now, and the question is, how best are we responding to what's been unplaying or unfolding for a couple of days now?
And let's leave it there for now, but thank you so much for that. Ayanda Nyathi is at the Eskom service in Diepkloof to bring us just the latest on this developing story. Perhaps it is important for us just to remind you, if you are a prepaid customer, of course, you will need to take action to ensure that your meter keeps working and that you will still be able to top up your meter when you purchase your meter token. So let's give you then a how-to in terms of what we are currently displaying for you on your screen to check whether your meter has been recoded or upgraded to the KRN2, or it's still on the KRN1 rather. You need to enter this 20-digit code on your prepaid meter keypad that's displayed there on the screen. The screen will then display either the number 1 or 1.2 or 2 or 2.1, and in some cases there may also be alphabetic letters alongside the KRN number. Number 1 means your meter is still on the KRN1, and then it needs to be recoded or upgraded to KRN2. So plenty of information that you can also get on the Eskom social media platforms and also on their website, and also on other entities like City Power or some municipalities where you need to get that information. Of course, the deadline, we're being told, will not be extended, and it is still the 24th of November, this Sunday. So less than 2 days, essentially, to get that done from your end. But as Ayanda also alluded to earlier, thousands, millions of South Africans have heeded that call, and most of them have been able to upgrade.